from third is Suarez. Goodell comes running in. He's under it, makes the catch. Here's the throw to the plate. It's in the air. He is out! Cameron Rick hangs on! Oh, man, what a play! Deep to right field. Way up there and way out! Second
I would love to hear Grand Slam Bryce Harper again, but I don't think that's ever going to happen. Just the
That
way.
would imply that they get 3 guys on base.
Yeah, and they actually hit a home run, which they don't do
He
either.
actually hits a home run.
Yeah. Yeah, welcome back to the Stupid Money Trade Deadline Prediction Show. I don't know, I wish the vibes were a little better. The Phillies have been really bad past week. The offense has been probably the worst in the majors over the last week. I'd say that rather confidently. Trey Turner just got ejected. He's going through it. Nick Castellanos is hitting under 200 the last 3 weeks, I think.
313 turned into 280 with him really quick.
Yeah, really quick. Bryce Harper is still stuck on 4 home runs. Kyle Schwarber is still batting in the 180s, and JT Realmuto is not coming up in any situation. So yeah, the 5 big guys that the Phillies are paying to hit the ball are literally the 5 worst hitters in their lineup. If Bo Marsh and Stott are in there, those 3 have been carrying this offense, which I can't believe this team is 7 games over 500 when you actually think about what those 5 are doing right now.
Yeah, I mean, I guess that's like somewhat good because you're banking on those guys at least trending towards the back of the baseball cards a little bit and maybe getting it going. But at this point, they've shown no signs of life for the most part. Like there's no signs that indicate that they're going to trend towards the back of the baseball card. So like for now, like I'm just going game to game, like this is what we got until any of them, especially Turner, like until he shows like any sign of life, because with him it's been 1 step forward, 2 steps back, 1 step forward, 4 steps back. And it's like he's just got no sense of rhythm at all. So yeah, I don't know. The lineup needs to get flipped up. You can't have your leading RBI guy batting 7, in my opinion, when the lineup's this bad. Like Bum's on pace for like over 100 RBIs, and it's like, yeah, we'll stick with 240 Realmuto in the 5 spot because that seems to be working really well.
Yeah, just the fact that those 5 guys are, I guess Castellanos, I don't think he could be worse than last year, but pretty much all 5 of those guys having their like career worst season right now is just really great. Yeah, it's bad. So we're gonna try to fix that today, which I don't think before the season we thought we'd be trading for more bats than pitchers at the deadline, but it's kind of where we are. So we're gonna get into it. We have each of our predictions for the trade deadline. Look, we use baseball trade values because it's really easy to create simulated trades. You just make a screenshot, you put them together, blah, blah, blah. It makes a quick picture. These values, I don't care too much for them. Some of them are accurate, yes, when you type in trades, but we're not kind of going off that. So don't dig too deep into that, those numbers for this. We're just trying to get names and make hypotheticals. We're not really too worried about the values right now.
Yeah. Alec, that I'm not a fan of this website. I think it's insanely unrealistic, but we don't have all the analytics and we don't have the minds of GMs necessarily. So this is what we've got.
Right. Yeah. So these are your predictions. So I'm just going to let you take over, run us through them and why you came to these conclusions. Not so much on the prospect return. I guess McGarry is a big enough name to make a comment on, but the rest of them,
Yeah. So I'll start on the left with Baron Radcliffe for Jurickson Profar. I remember Radcliffe when he was drafted. I believe he was first baseman from Georgia Tech. He was a big dude. I think they drafted him maybe in the COVID year when there were only 5 rounds, and I think they were kind of banking on the upside with the power. I think he hit a lot of home runs his senior year at Georgia Tech. Don't quote me on that, but I feel like that was the scouting report on him. He hasn't really done much in the system as far as I know. I don't think he's on the top 30 list on Pipeline or Fangraphs. So Profar was a name. I don't know if we talked about it on the podcast before the season.
I think I did. I kind of wanted him.
I think we both kind of wanted him. I just don't remember. So it seems so long ago. As the outfielder names kind of slimmed down, he was still out there, but I think we all kind of assumed that he wanted a multi-year deal because he had a really good year last year. He can play infield. I know he's mostly an outfielder these days, but he does have history of infield, and this was kind of just like a utility guy. My thought here was I'm so sick and tired of watching Josh Harrison play baseball.
Me too.
So you get a guy that you could throw in at an infield spot maybe. I don't know how accustomed he is to third base, but still he's a guy that could potentially hit lefties. I know he's having a really bad year for the money that he signed, but I was just scrolling through a thread that I saw on Twitter today by Alex Carr, and he tweeted out his slash lines. Against lefties, he's slashing 296 with a 358 OBP and a 469 slug. So he could give you that bat off the bench against left-handed pitching, which this team kind of seems to be lacking. I know he won't be like the everyday outfield guy that you're looking for, but I'll get into that in a second. Kind of just take Harrison's at bats. Again, I don't know how adept he is at third base, but I'd rather him be poor at third base and take Harrison's at bats than have to watch Josh Harrison play baseball anymore.
Yeah.
So that's kind of where I'm at there. I wanted to throw a fun one in here. If we recorded this maybe a day ago, it would have been Juan Soto. But all day today, I saw on Twitter that the Padres aren't trading anybody, including this morning. I saw that they were shopping Snell and Hader, and then 3 hours later, I saw that they weren't taking offers on them anymore. So it seems like they're going to at least stay put, whether or not they buy. But that definitely seems to be that Soto's off the table. So I know Sir Anthony's scheduled to be activated tomorrow, so Tuesday. But you can never go wrong with too many bullpen arms, and Helsley has another year of control, I believe, after this, at least one.
Yeah, he does.
And he only has 22 games this year. He hasn't been like insane, but the ERA is a 3.24, but the FIP is a 2.6, and the expected ERA is a 2.17. His stuff is gross just on the surface. It seems like the Phillies kind of broke him last year. Like after the wild card round, he didn't have a great start to the year, but it seems like Caleb Cotham gets the most, and the bullpen coaches, they get the most out of those guys. So I'd trust those guys to handle him. Griff's been really good lately, but especially with the news on Painter, I feel like they're going to be kind of staying put with Abel and Painter, especially with the upside there. And the chances of all three starting pitching prospects that we have in the top 4 making it to the majors and being like major contributors, that's just like the odds in history show that that's just not likely. So I'm all in on taking a chance and getting a high upside bullpen arm for the guy that you think might be most major league ready when the Cardinals say that they're looking for young, controllable starting pitching. So I think that'd kind of be a fair swap there, especially for if you could shrink the game in the playoffs and get it down to like you need 5 innings from your starters, and then you have a bullpen with Helsley, Sir Anthony, Alvarado, Soto, and Kimbrel. I mean, that's pretty lethal, I think. And the last trade that I have, Duvall and Paxton. This one was weird. Especially because the Red Sox, they might be only like 2.5 out of a wild card spot.
Yeah.
So I feel like the asking price on Paxton might be a little high, which kind of scares me. I have Hao Yu Lee in there. I saw an article a few years ago that Like people were really. It was when the hitters in our system were like depleted, and like I mean Rojas has shown that he's somewhat capable in the majors, but like him and Jalen Ortiz were in like our top 7, and it's like those guys probably aren't top 7 prospects in any good system. But I saw an article that the real top hitting prospect in the system was Hao Lee, and he's been hurt at the time. But this year he's kind of gotten back to just hitting, and I think he's in Clearwater right now, and the hit tool's good, and he's a second baseman. I know the Red Sox are kind of crowded in the infield with they have Story signed, Marcelo Myers there. But I feel like they just take a chance on the hitting, especially with them having the DH. I think the upside's there in Hao Lee, and you get Duvall, who's a righty outfielder bat with gold glove potential. Again, we talked about him in the preseason about an outfield target. So you get a reliable 4th or 5th starter to kind of solid out the back of your rotation, especially since Ranger's been a little shaky. You get another lefty in there, and you get the righty power bat who was off to a tear at the start of the season before he got hurt. And it made me feel even better to see that the Braves were in on him, because it seems like that's just an organization that's doing everything right.
Yeah.
So if the Braves like him, then I definitely like him. And we saw what happened last time he came back to a National League East team at the trade deadline. So I think that'd definitely be a good get.
Yeah, I'm in on him too. My thing with the Red Sox is like I don't know what that team does. Like you said, just I think 2.5 games out of the wild card spot. Are they going to be a buyer? Are they going to, because they have a lot of players kind of on expiring contracts, like Justin Turner too, who's having a great year. He was a guy I wanted to put in my mock trades, but I just couldn't do it because I don't think this Red Sox team is going to give up. So
and I mean,
from age,
they might be. I believe last year they kind of bought a little bit and then sold a little bit. Like they might be one of those teams like how the Twins were last year, and the Brewers like move some pieces around, but ultimately like not go all in, but get what you can while still trying to maintain the core and compete. But I think Paxton would be a pretty drastic move for them because he's been really good in that rotation.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I wrestled between Duvall and Paxton or Bellinger and Kyle Hendricks.
Yeah.
I think Bellinger gives you more than Duvall does, but I think we really need a righty bat over a lefty.
Mm-hmm.
Hendricks has been much worse, not much worse, but he's been worse than Paxton by a noticeable margin. Bellinger gives you more flexibility. I think the cost as far as the rental goes, I don't know what it would be. You might be able to do Lee and Baker, especially because we gave them Ben Brown for David Robertson last year. So
Right.
They might have a pretty good relationship with the front office. Like, hey, that trade worked out a lot for them. So they might feel comfortable in doing deals with us. So that's something to watch. I think Bellinger makes a lot of sense, but I went for the righty bat instead of the lefty bat.
Yeah, I mean, for me too, I would have liked Bellinger. His splits aren't that different, honestly, righty versus lefty. So I don't know how much of a difference it would make, but like, because he is like kind of the bat out there.
That's what I was thinking too. Like he's the name since Soto's kind of out. He's like the guy that like, oh, the lefties are not very plentiful as far as hitters go. It seems like the other outfielder that is pretty popular is Lane Thomas, and
Yeah.
I kind of between Duvall and Thomas, the price for Thomas would be much more, and Duvall's a better defender, which like I think matters a little bit, especially none of these trades have them giving up Rojas, but like I don't know what the asking price is, especially if Paxton's involved. I don't think you deal Rojas, but if you trust Pache, then maybe you do. And with Pache being hurt, I'd probably prioritize defense a little bit.
Yeah, that makes sense. So moving on to mine here. I have 4 because they did 4 last year. So I kind of want the same number. First one is I have Barlow, who is currently the closer of the Royals now that Chapman is gone. I have Kraus in there, and then a couple down like lower league guys. His numbers have he's had a bad week actually. He's given up like 6 runs in his last 2 innings. So his ERA is actually over 5 right now, but 2 years prior, a guy whose ERA averaged I think 2.2 as the closer of the Royals. And I'm not asking him to close. I'm asking him to come in the 7th inning. Just
Right.
another righty for them to have. I think he's a good cheaper option. I know we say we don't go by these values too much, but I really wanted that Lawrence dude on the Rockies.
Yeah,
And
I like Lawrence a lot.
I went on there and his value was 19. So if
Yeah,
that's
I don't know how much control he has.
he has a
As
couple
far
years,
as
I think.
yeah, he's filthy. I watched that. I watched the end of the Rockies Marlins game last night when he was in, or 2 nights ago maybe. He's filthy.
Yeah, I would consider giving up McGarry for him, but I think there's comparable.
I'd do. I didn't even think of it, but I'd do Lawrence and Profar for McGarry.
Yeah, I mean, yeah,
If they want to
I
get
would
off
do a
that
package
contract.
start in there. Yeah. Also, I kind of thought of this after the point. I guess my last trade you'll see there is kind of where I went instead. But adding Matt Duffy into the deal, I would do.
Mhm.
He I think his OPS is 7 something against lefties. I know. The thing that's nice about him, plays the corner infield spots. I think that gets rid of Josh Harrison, which
Yeah,
is my big thing. He doesn't. I mean, he only has 1 home run on the season, but I think if we're
he'd fit right in.
right, I'm asking him to just be my number 11 or 12 bat. So I'm not asking too much there. I think that's fine. If I went with Matt Duffy instead of guy I talk about at the end. This was kind of my big one. Renfro from the Angels, giving them Baker. I like Renfro has no value on there. I see them because they're not totally out of it, even though they like kind of realistically are. I feel like I think you
I
got to
mean,
overpay a little bit.
I just saw that they were listening to calls from the Orioles and Diamondbacks on Ohtani, so like they're not in it.
Right. So to me, Renfro, gold like you said with Duvall, Gold Glove caliber outfielder, lots of pop, 12 homers I think on the season, unless he hit another one, over 40 RBIs right now. Righty, put him in left, or you could I put Castellanos in left, and
I'd probably do that because Renfro is a cannon.
yeah, so do that. Yeah, I mean that's the other thing. These Phillies outfielders have such weak arms. Just having a threat out there again would be nice, like we had with Harper before he got hurt.
Mhm.
To me, we talked about Bellinger, how it's kind of unrealistic. Obviously, it could happen, but there's going to be a huge bidding war on him, and he is a lefty. To me, Renfro's kind of the quieter alternative that I think gets the job equally done.
Yeah,
So,
I like Renfro a lot.
yeah, so that's where I went there. Another Phillies Angels trade. They're obviously very familiar with each other. I think the Angels like the way Moniak is playing, even though his like K rate is 30 and his walk rate is 2. I think, and what Logan O'Hoppe was doing before he got hurt, I think the Angels are happy with their returns so far. I could see them wanting to do business again, and I think the Phillies were also very happy with Marsh, and Syndergaard got the job done. Up and for what they asked him to do. So both sides seem happy with prior trades. I think they could do it again there. Another team the Phillies kind of made a quiet trade with last year that turned out somewhat significant was obviously the Sosa for Jojo Romero trade.
Mhm.
Now, Christopher Sanchez just went 7 innings, 2 runs against the Orioles. I get it. He's doing very good, and as a 5, you're happy with that. The thing is, the Phillies rotation is healthy now, but after the deadline, if somebody goes down, you're kind of screwed. I'd rather build up some pitching here. Flaherty, the numbers aren't great right now, but he still has a lot of upside. He's a guy you could get some more out of, and you're just asking him to be the 5, borderline 6. I don't see a huge problem with going after someone like him. He's not his teammate Montgomery, who has like a sub 3.5 ERA, or might even be closer to 3 straight right now, but I think he doesn't cost you as much. I do have De La Cruz in there, but I mean, I'm not overly looking into that. I think it might cost you someone like that, but I don't know if the Phillies really have room for De La Cruz in the coming years. So
I don't hate Flaherty because I think a 6-man rotation could be beneficial down here. Just buying Nola and Wheeler extra days off, limiting their innings. De La Cruz is so interesting to me because he's been like really good this year, and I think he's going to start to move up at least our rankings. And I don't think he'll crack like the top 100 by any means, but I think he'll start to get on some people's radars. And so much of this depends on what they do with Harper because I don't think De La Cruz necessarily projects as an outfielder.
Right.
But if you want to put him at first base, do you want to move Harper back to the outfield next year when he's healthy? Or if you want to keep Harper at first base, De La Cruz did come up as an outfielder. I don't think he's going to be a Gold Glover out there by any means, but I think the bat is intriguing enough that I'm hesitant to get rid of him, especially with Hoskins walking or at least being a free agent and that kind of being in limbo. I think there's a lot of moving parts to get rid of him at the deadline. I think he would be an interesting piece to trade in the off season when he has a full year of work this year. And it's like, you can say to other teams like, hey, this is what this guy did with a full season. We don't have room at first base anymore. Now let's talk. I mean, I see the upside of trading him now while he's hot, and you could sell high on him kind of. But I don't know. He's a guy that intrigues me, and I'd kind of like to keep around.
Yeah, that was a tough one for me. I was just trying to put a couple names out there. I could see them sticking or hanging on to him. Last guy had kind of as my utility guy instead of Matt Duffy, Connor Joe from the Pirates. He plays first base and the outfield. So I don't know if he's a total replacement for Harrison because he can't play third, but I guess he kind of is because then you don't have to worry about bringing Bohm back over to first at all. So then it's like Bohm and Sosa still can do third, and then if Bohm's still on third, Sosa the middle infield spots too. So I think this one is possible. The big thing with him that I kind of liked is that his OPS against lefties is 903, which I think they need. It's not a ton of at bats. It's 100 at bats, but I mean it's still a decent amount for a bench player. Pretty much what the Phillies would have him do. I was surprised his value was that high, honestly. So yeah, he's kind of like a depth piece for me. I think he's better than Harrison. Obviously, probably not as versatile as Harrison, but I do think he's a better bat. And with the way this offense has been, I'm going bat over defense right now every day of the week.
So here's my thing with Connor Joe. Hold on. I'm going to pull up the numbers right now, but I've been like watching him in fantasy for like the last 2 years because he started off really well with the Rockies last year. And I could be wrong, but he's one of those guys that just starts off the season so hot and then falls off a cliff. Like this year, I remember like I was out in Pittsburgh for the start of the season, and he like came out scorching when the Pirates got off to such a good start.
Yeah, he was hot.
I was telling all my friends, I was like, just wait. Like he did this last year. He hit 340 with the Rockies, and then I check in June, and he's hitting 240. So it splits by month this year. In April and March, he hit 288, 387 on base, 575 slug with 4 home runs. May, he hit 221. June, he hit 197. July, he's back up to 269. He's slugging 462 with only 1 home run this month. So, like, he's versatile for sure. He just seems to fade as the season goes on. And if that's actually what they're valuing him at, I don't love Ethan Wilson. So I think his value is a little bit higher than it is in real life. I think his value, I think this website overvalues him. So if we're talking like Ethan Wilson for Connor Joe, then maybe. But like, I don't know. I personally am not a huge Connor Joe guy.
Yeah, I know. I wanted to do Duffy more, but I already had the Barlow trade in there, so I just kind of left it go. and went with Joe instead. But he is just an interesting guy because of his OPS versus lefties.
Yeah,
But
for sure. He gives you the bat against lefties that is definitely better than Harrison is, for sure. I agree with that. Against lefties this year, he's hitting 290, 393, slugging 510. Yeah, I'd be good with that, but overall I don't love him.
yeah,
But
yeah,
I'd take him as the righty bat against lefties.
yeah. Because I remember last year when he was on the Rockies and the Phillies saw the Rockies earlier, and he hit like 3 home runs in that series.
Mhm.
Or by the end of the year, he wasn't even starting for them. So
Yeah.
yeah, there is that risk there. But just kind of, I don't know, looking for some under the radar names because it's not really a deep trade market because there's a lot of fringe teams. Like
It's definitely a seller's market.
yeah, it is interesting because like the Angels maybe sell the Nationals, but the Nationals are at a point where they're in their rebuild where the majority of their guys are guys they want there for the future, except maybe
Mhm.
Ramiro Calorano or however the hell you say his last name, who the
Yeah.
Marlins have been linked to. But he's kind of like the only guy that not in their long term plans right now that plays significant ball for them. So like teams like that, like the Tigers have Erod. Erod was hurt, and then
But
Michael
they're
Lorenzen.
also only like 4 games back of that division right
Yeah,
now,
'cause
or
that
5
division.
games back of that division.
That's the other thing. That division is a cluster where Kansas City is the only team out of it, and the A's are so bad where they don't even have anyone really worth a damn trading for.
Mhm.
So, like, it's just a weird market this year. You're gonna have a lot of fringe teams, like 500 teams, do like a buy sell.
Yeah,
I
like
feel
we were
like,
talking about, the Red Sox are right there. The
yeah,
Cubs are kind of right there. The Cardinals were dead, but now they won like 6 of 7 or 7 in a row, and it's like they're not right there, but at the same time, everyone in the wild card has been losing, and they just kept winning. So they went
mhm,
from like 10, 11 games back. All of a sudden, they're like 8 back, which isn't like you're not in like shouting distance yet, but you're definitely not out of it, especially with the division they play in. I don't know what their schedule looks like, but I feel like we still have to play them maybe. But I have to assume that they have at least some games left against like the Pirates, or I know they have a 4 games. They just got handled by the Cubs a bit, but they have a 4-game series against the Cubs this week. So that's going to determine a lot, I feel, as far as where the Cubs are at, where the Cardinals are at, and kind of how the National League is going to shake out. Does the wild card become more clustered? Do we start to see some things more clearly?
yeah, that's a good point. Phillies have not seen the Cardinals yet this year, so them trading off pieces would help the Phillies maybe win some games down the road of the last 2 months of the season here, which would be nice. It's always nice when you play the good teams early in the year and the bad teams late in the year because after the deadline, the good teams get better, the bad teams get worse. So it's always kind of good when you get the bulk of the good teams. You're on your schedule out of the way early. It's kind of been the case this year. Playing Baltimore right now, an interesting team that could make a big trade if they wanted to, but probably won't. So
I don't think they will.
yeah, their prospect list is funny to me. The top 10 is like 9 position players in their system.
Yeah,
Like they're just like loaded with position players. It's so funny.
yeah. And then Grayson Rodriguez, who like hasn't been great this year, but like
Yeah.
he's a stud. Like he'll be fine.
It's just funny because like it's like Gibson. It's like their like quote unquote ace, I guess, like their vet guy.
Dude,
So it's just funny.
if he mows the Phillies down on Tuesday, I'm calling San Diego myself and offering them Painter, Abel, McGarry, Rojas. I'll
Yeah.
offer them the top 10 in the farm because I'm sick of this offense.
Yeah, it's been bad. We'll get into it, I guess, after the trade deadline. Just wanted to make this mostly a trade deadline centered video. So yeah, we're gonna end this one here. Just wanted to get the trades out of the way. Whatever happens with the Phillies, who are currently a half game out of the wild card, the last wild card spot, we'll see what happens tonight. But that's gonna do it for this one. So we'll get back after the trade deadline and kind of see if we were right or wrong about something. We'll probably be wrong about most of them, but see if we were right about anything. So